Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for another daily movie review, and today we're going to be talking about the recently released film Spree. The film is directed by Eugene Kotlyarenko, written by him and this guy named Gene McHugh. It stars Joe Keery, Sashir Zamata, David Arquette, Kyle Mooney, Misha Barton, Frankie Grand, Layla Kent, Reith Gregg, Caroline Herbert, Sonny Kim, and others. The plot, the synopsis, or the logline here is: thirsty for a following, Kurt Kunkel is a rideshare driver who has figured out a deadly plan to go viral. So, this is kind of like one of these faux documentary type things for the modern era, for the Zoomer age. It involves like Spree drivers, Uber driver type deal, Instagram live streams, doing fucked up things for clout. Like we have all these challenges that come out nowadays. You have kids licking fucking toilet seats. I remember when COVID or coronavirus first started, it's like kids going to fucking grocery stores and like licking shelves. A lot of licking going on. Very sexual. Anyways, but this kid decides, spoiler alert, that he's gonna go commit a slew of murders. He's gonna do it on live stream. He's gonna do it so he can get followers, get validation from the public. He's a character that basically has been trying to create some sort of online following for his entire life, or for the past couple years. But he just can't get any traction. He's actually not very good at it. He's not very affable. He's awkward. He never develops past that, even with all the practice of doing it. And this is kind of like this last-ditch thing. He's frustrated about it. And he's frustrated that he has friends that are also, or he has at least one that is like a big streamer that kind of feels bad for him, kind of. And it's like definitely a parody of current YouTube. I can't remember the guy's name. Is it Rice Gum? There's some really obnoxious dude on YouTube that's just, I don't know. Any of these vloggers, these professional vloggers and Twitch streamers and whatnot. So that's kind of the basis for the story, and then it just kind of plays out that way. And it's definitely a dark comedy. For most of the time. The kid who plays the main character, Joe Keery, who is, I believe he's from some of the most recent, or no, he's been in all of them. He's in Stranger Things. He plays Steve Harrington. He plays, I think he's like a bully in the first season. He's really good, actually, in the movie. If I were to say anything about this movie, I would tell people, oh, this is a really great performance, because he really nails the nature of the character and that awkwardness, that specific awkwardness between, because there's a difference when he's like speaking privately to people and then when he's directly addressing the camera, and you see the shift, and he's really, really good at kind of modulating it. If anything, that was my biggest takeaway, was he gives a really impressive performance, because the movie itself ends up being kind of predictable. It is a little on the preachy side, and it's a little maybe too formulaic at a certain point. I think the first 45 minutes, like the first act, maybe into the second act, it really holds your attention, and you're kind of surprised by where it goes, because I didn't know anything about this movie when I saw it, so I didn't see a trailer. I didn't see anything. I just went in totally blind, and I didn't even know what I was getting into. So I was pleasantly surprised when I first started. I was like, oh, this is kind of building some interesting layers. It's talking about social media. It's talking about social media fame. And then it kind of just doesn't know what to do with it. It doesn't have, because there's this weird thing about the responsibility of the platform, like kind of at the end of the movie. And it's never able to kind of coherently bring it all together in a way that makes all that much sense, to be honest with you. But there are things in the movie, I think, that are really creative and really interesting. I think just the way it's shot with the like inside of a car with all the GoPro cameras and cell phones and other live streams, and that's kind of the entire perspective you have. So it kind of falls in line with a few of these movies that have come out over the past few years, kind of like The Unfriendeds or Searching that came out, was kind of the more mainstream, it's like a mystery thriller that takes place on a laptop, and it kind of just takes that and utilizes the tech that we actually have today, and utilizes the world that we live in, that people experience in their daily lives. Everything is live streamed. Like this kind of thing, not the murdering necessarily, but this kind of experiment, somebody being an IRL streamer, in real life streamer, would do something like this. They would have fucking cameras all over their car, and they would go out Uber driving, and that's something they would do. So it makes sense for that. I think it seems very specifically kind of directed towards the LA scenester type. It's like made for the people that made the movie, basically. Because this is an anxiety people like that would probably have. More so than if you're out kind of and live in other places. Because they have this weird thing, and I don't know what it is. A lot of filmmakers, especially millennial filmmakers, they can only tell stories that are directly like about themselves. They can't like take the principle or the thesis or the idea and kind of transport that to something that's more broadly relatable. They do these very specific, very idiosyncratic things that only people of their generation would truly understand. And I've never gotten that. I think it's just like a limit. It shows their limited vision. And also it doesn't help that a lot of times they don't have a very strong thesis. They have a good idea, and then they can't really pull it all the way through. And I don't know what the deal is with that, honestly. It's something I've noticed as of late. I've noticed it a lot lately, the past couple of years, with kind of filmmakers that are basically my age and a little bit older. It's just this really insular thing. Like, everybody is in a bubble nowadays, right? Everybody is in a bubble. Nobody has much of a desire to get out of that bubble or to explore anything greater. And I think it shows up in their work. I think it shows up in their art. Another guy that I've criticized before, and somebody tried to come after me on Twitter. This was a long time ago. Joe Begos. Joe Begos is a very talented filmmaker that has, I guess, like I said, limited vision. It feels so navel-gazing at some point. He makes these movies that are nothing but references to things that he grew up with, and they're just not as good versions of it. And then when he did strike out on his own a little bit, he made this movie called Bliss, which is, I believe, a Shudder exclusive if you have Shudder. It's like this LA scenester vampire movie. But it is completely like self-serving. It's like he made it for himself and his friends, and because it is specifically about a lifestyle that most people just have no connection to, and then the characters aren't even remotely likable in a way that, like, if you're not familiar with people like that already or involved in that world, like, it's just going to fall flat to you. And I think they just do themselves a disservice, because some of these people, like I said, are very talented. This guy who made this movie, I would watch something else he directed. Joe Begos, I'll always check out a Joe Begos movie. I'm waiting for the one that, like, really clicks for me, you know? And I feel the same way about this, because while I didn't hate this movie or anything like that, I did enjoy aspects of it. I think it's got some interesting stuff, even if it kind of muddies things up a little bit. It is just not that, I don't know, it's just not really that well-rounded, I guess, at the end of the day. That's the thing. Like, by the time the movie's over, you're kind of like, it feels like it almost like undercuts itself and becomes very forgettable, because at some point it just kind of has to become a formulaic serial killer movie to one degree or another, which is just a functional thing. I don't know really how you get around that. And it just, I don't know. It's not, I don't know. It was whatever. It was fine. It was fine. I mean, like, if you were really bored and you saw this on a streaming service and you like horror thrillers, dark comedies, probably worth checking out, especially if you're plugged into kind of internet culture or life at all, which is now becoming just mainstream culture, which I think is something this movie does reflect. It's worth checking out. If I were to watch a movie like this, though, and if I were to recommend one to people, there's this movie from 2013 called The Dirties. And that's about two best friends are filming a comedy about getting revenge on bullies at their high school. One of them isn't joking. The Bullies is an incredibly inventive, weird kind of faux documentary. Like, these guys are just, you're just watching footage of these guys of them filming, trying to put this movie together, this low budget movie. And there's this really subversive quality to it. It is actually really interesting. It's got this interesting meta quality to it. I've seen it a few times. I actually went back and watched it, but that would be the one, I think, because this feels like The Dirty is for, like, Zoomers, for people that are younger than me, like people that are like 20 now, would maybe find something like Spree like really enthralling and really like, because it would be so reflective of their actual existence. So for when you're an old fuddy-duddy like me, when you're like 33, you're, like the Dirties is a little bit more my speed. Something I related to a little bit more was the Dirties. Even though it kind of dealing with very similar types of characters, these kind of this egomania, this narcissism, and how they express that, you know? And it ends up crazy. The Dirties is a much better movie. I actually really like the director of The Dirties, Matt Johnson. I'll have to do a video just about The Dirties and maybe his other movie. He's done this, and then he did the show that was on Vice, the Vice channel, Nirvana, the band, the show. It's about these guys, this 2-man band called Nirvana the band. It's actually very good. He kind of just does like mockumentary type stuff, like almost Christopher Guest type esque things. They all feel very naturalistic. The actors are generally pretty good, like, and they sell the material very well. Yeah, he did 2 feature-length films so far, though. It's The Dirties and Operation Avalanche, which is about faking the moon landing, and that's like another fake documentary. It's really good, though. I really enjoy his stuff. Yeah, so that's going to do it for me today. I think Spree is okay. Like, if you're just inclined to check out something like this, the genre itself, it's probably worth checking out. It's like 90 minutes long, and you're not going to hate it at the end of it. You're just going to be maybe underwhelmed. But that performance, let me tell you what, Joe Keery's performance is great. It's almost, I would say, might be worth watching the movie for. It might be. I don't know. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my personal Twitter, Danimal's personal Twitter. He's become a Twitter guy now. I mostly talk about movies and stuff. Dan's just talks about politics and whatnot, what's going on in the world. Also, if you'd like to make a recommendation for one of these daily videos, throw it in the comments and I'll see what I can do. All right, everybody, you have a great one.